Welcome back, everybody, to Trauma.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. It's Masters Week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow golf like that?
A little bit.
Do you have someone you're rooting for?
Jordan Spieth.
Spieth?
Come on, that's my guy.
I think he's a fake.
Oh my god.
I think he's a fake. After
All right.
that, I mean, he's coming off a win.
He's hot.
He's won
ready.
there. He's won there before, but after that breakdown, dude, I'm he hasn't been the same, and some people don't ever return from that.
Sure, he loves the doubters, man. You're gonna see this week.
You might be right. I'm a Morikawa guy. Young,
I like him too.
Young Colin,
Yeah,
dude,
I
he's
like
like
him too.
23.
Yeah, he's a young buck.
Won a
like
major
him.
already. Humble, UCLA, Asian American.
You got to be mentally built for that.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
He's a different breed. I got to give him props.
Yeah, and okay, speaking of Jordan Spieth, do you remember that one year that Under Armour had him? So Jordan Spieth won the Masters that year, Cam Newton won MVP that year, and
Oh,
Steph
right.
Curry.
Yeah.
Like, that was a crazy year for them.
That's a lineup.
Yeah, right?
That's a lineup.
And then time happened.
I got love for you, Cam. I got love for you.
But anyways, back to our typical broadcasting here. Before we jump into the episode, we actually wanted to thank everybody that's been reaching out to us.
Absolutely.
The feedback is fucking gold. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, guys. And we want all of it. My dumbass didn't check the DM, so G1 was like, dude, idiot, there's some messages waiting. And so if you've DM'd us and it's been like 2 weeks since we responded, that's all me. For whatever reason, I forgot how Instagram works, but we're on it now, and we're gonna engage with everything because, again, we love your ideas, we love your feedback and all of that, so keep them coming. Particularly, one that Sam and I both really resonated on was some of you guys want to hear traumas that we have not experienced and can't speak to, right?
Right.
And bringing other people on, so that's definitely on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And so we want to hear more ideas like that.
Absolutely.
Cool. So that's that. The other thing is, I think I just wanted to set the stage to say we're going to switch it up a little bit today. In that, as I'm listening to all these podcast episodes and rewatching the videos, there's a lot of just kind of me shitting on the church and just being bitter. And that's
okay.
And it's
It's all
okay,
right.
exactly.
Yeah,
that
it's
like
all right.
we're here to create room for people that feel the same.
Yeah.
And to have dialogue, right?
Right.
But at the same time, man, like I can't say I've grown if I can't acknowledge the fact that like I have my half of the equation to be accountable for. And so this will be a deep dive, I think, a little bit more of a deeper dive into just me being authentic and trying to find my authentic self, but also how going down that road really revealed to me that a lot of it was on me and my shortcomings.
Could have been. Yeah.
And how as much as the church did fuck up and does give people scars, like living with the accountability and understanding that like it's on you a lot, right? There's a lot in life you can't control,
right,
but there's a lot that you can control.
Right.
And so I think I just gave away a lot of my power to all these people, institutions, processes, and systems, and now I'm at a place where I honestly think me back to my same churches, it would have been a totally different experience.
Could have been, yeah.
Right. So
yeah. And I think part of the healing process is acknowledging some of the scars and the hurt that you have been through.
Yeah.
Because you can't get to a place of restoration unless you get to a place of admitting the hurt that was there.
Right.
And so I think, and a lot of people have asked, like, what is my role in this? Like, what is our relationship? Right?
Yeah.
And I think part of the joy has been being able to walk with you as a friend, older brother, as a mentor, as a person that's spiritually on a journey together, right? And I've done ministry for 10 plus years, ordained pastor, did seminary, did all the church thing that you could possibly do. And I realized if you were to boil it all down, part of my reality is discovering more of who I am.
Yeah.
What am I living for?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be in communion with God? And that's the kind of relationship that I want to have with all my dudes, with all the people that I get to live life with. Is it's not just some hierarchical, like I'm up here and you're down here.
Right.
It's the idea that we're on a spiritual journey together. We're on a faith journey together.
Right.
Finding out who God is and who I am in Him and how does life all fit into all of this. And so I think this episode will probably be my favorite one simply because it's not just bashing on the church, which the church needs to own up to some of the things that we've done, but also like how do I progress forward? How do I move on in my journey to be more authentic? How to be how to be more whole? How to live fruitfully? Because that's where we want to get into, right?
I love that you said that, Sam, because you're right. Most people, like pastors, are known to be the people with all the answers. right? I think about my relationship with my past pastors and how most people engage with their pastors. You guys are like genies, right? We go to you for, how do I do this? What's the answer to that? Exactly. It's like whatever the topic might be. So it's really refreshing for you to say that you're also you're on a self-discovery journey on your own. For
sure.
Just being a pastor doesn't mean you suddenly get a download of all the answers.
Yeah, we got it all figured out. No way.
Right. So no, I love that. I'll also say that you have led churches, you've spoken at countless events, all that kind of stuff. But I also really appreciate how our relationship has evolved over time, because you've been with me through like the different phases of my life,
right?
And have again encouraged me to operate in my authenticity and in that journey. So let's dive into that topic, right?
Let's do it.
I think something that I struggle with every single day, and I think most people fall into the trap of, is lack of authenticity, right? And I think a lot of it is people pleasing.
That's real.
Right?
That's real talk.
And it starts at a young age in an Asian household because you want to please your parents. The approval of your family and your parents is number one.
Right.
And
they tell you who to become.
Exactly.
Who you should be.
You can be anyone you want as long as you're a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Anyone. Anything you want to be.
Yeah. Anything in that bubble.
Yeah, exactly. And similar to the church, it's very black and white. You're either a good kid or you're a bad kid.
Yeah.
You're obedient or you're not. You're a good student or you're not.
Yeah.
And I see parallels in the church as well in that way.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like you're saved or you're not. You're going to heaven or hell. Right? And so I remember when I'm in church and I'm also looking for approval there as well. Like, does the body approve of me as a leader here? Does the pastor think I'm fit? Right? Spiritually fit to be in this position?
Right. Because we're all trying to live for the approval of an individual.
Right.
To be seen by this individual or individuals.
Totally. And it's everywhere, right? School, church, work.
Right.
And for me, I realized that what ended up happening was I kind of cocooned myself to a point where I lost touch of or maybe never even really fostered it or grew like my actual voice and authentic self, because you get so damn good at it. Like, I became fluent in Christianese by age 10. You know what I'm saying? Where you go to these retreats and you're in these small groups and you're talking about all these topics. But I can recall every Bible story and I can, call upon life experiences that relate to this and that. But it's not really coming from the real Daniel, if that makes sense. Right. Similar to an interview.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone out there can relate to this. Y'all have been to a job interview. You're sitting there nervous as hell because you're sitting in front of somebody hoping that they're going to literally stamp you with an approval. Right? And so what happens, they ask you a question. And for me, what I'm doing, my mind is going a million miles an hour trying to think, what do they want to hear? Versus, what's the fucking question and what do I actually think the answer is? Yeah. It's just two different ways to live, right?
Yeah.
And I just got really good at lying to myself and just kind of not being present with myself to the point where that just became who I was.
Because you got to sell yourself.
Right.
And we talked about this a little bit last episode, that's what life has become. You're constantly trying to project or sell yourself to others. Yeah. Social media is that way, especially if you're trying to be an influencer or something. You're always trying to project your best self. Yeah. And so we live by comments, likes, subscriptions. That's what we live for. That's what we live by.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
You bring up a good point. I'm thinking about social media and it's the flex period, right? It's all about flexing and the highlight reels. And I'm just whenever a new brand comes, I kind of hate brands right now, as I'm wearing Stone Island. But just
Target, baby. Yeah. Let's go.
But you know how big shirts and t-shirts with the fat noisy logo, I just don't like that, because I'm damn, I know if people didn't like that brand, would you still be buying it? Would you still be into it? You might not. Right. But just going back to this idea of we make our decisions not even based on what we think, but what other people think.
Right.
And I went 24, 5, 6 years of my life without realizing that was my reality. Yeah. I was just living by proxy.
Right.
And so I'll even bring school as an example. It might be a stretch, might not, but I became very good at the system and the game of school, right? Meaning I knew how to get good grades. Yeah. I knew how to work the system to get the 4.0. Right. But was I really connecting and resonating with the teachings and the basic fundamentals? Did I just say fundamentals?
You did.
Fundamentals.
Yes.
I don't know. Anyways. Holy shit. But yeah, so it's like school. I get really good at fucking memorizing formulas and theories and shit like that. But in real life, it doesn't translate. Why? Because it's not my real firsthand knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? I should be able to understand the basics and derive it in real time. And that's real knowledge. And that's being authentic to the understanding you have.
Yeah.
And so as I think school, socially and academically, at my work, whatever it might be, I was just so out of touch with myself, and it bugged me because I have a lot of creative friends, and they're just like more in tune with themselves than the people that are less creative, right? They know what they like and they know what they don't.
The self-awareness was high.
It just was in some areas, and so for me, I felt like the odd one out. One of my best friends would always say, dude, you're the master of none. Because, like, you're the guy that can talk about a lot of stuff, but, like, what are you really into?
Oof.
That fucked me up, man. I was like, shit. Like, you know, that guy's into movies. That guy's into hip-hop. That guy's into whatever it might be, food, cooking. And I'm just here like, money. I don't know, trying to get successful. And that was one of the big triggers for me where I was like, damn, you need to find yourself, boy, because you about to turn 30 in a couple years, and the last thing you want to do is wake up 40 stacking bread and being like, you have no idea who the fuck you are, what you're living for.
Right. Why do you suppose authenticity is such a big deal, particularly for millennials? Because our parents' generation, they never asked that question of who am I?
Yeah.
But why do you suppose for you that's a big deal?
That's a great question. Well, okay, I will say, I'm glad you brought up the whole prior generation, because I think it's a luxury. They didn't have the luxury to consider self-awareness and mental health, and they're like, fuck, man, I need to put food on the table so my kid doesn't die, right? So, like, and that's just real. But I think it matters to us because we do have that luxury now. Now that, like, knowledge is power, we have more information, and we do get to benefit off of the sacrifices of our parents, which gives us that leisure to kind of be like, okay, well, what is it that we really want?
Right.
So it is a blessing, and we need to be grateful for it.
Huge.
But I also think that because we grew up in America through the school system and through pop culture and all that, we're seeing other people live lives that we thought were unimaginable. Or for me, I thought so. And so I'm like, damn, I want that. They look like they're living really freely and like doing the shit that they want to be doing versus what they should be doing. And so I think maybe that may be a positive of social media, which is it is showing how the best versions of people's lives. Some of it's fabricated, sure. For sure. But for me, dude, I didn't know Asian Americans could live lives that were so passionate and creative and just liberating in who they are versus subscribing to the model minority path.
Right. And I think the conversation that we've had for a long time is, why is it so important to value who you are? Like, to honor authentically, I think that's the word that you guys love to use. How do you authentically love the person that you are, the way that God has created you to be, without being cut down by the church, your family, because oftentimes it's always like when you go to church or when you grow up, it's always like, you know, Samuel, I wish you were more like this person.
Yes.
You know, because they were smarter, more athletic. They were go to Hebekido or early morning prayer, whatever. Like
on that note, sorry to cut you off there. I'm not directing this at any individual, but at the concept. Everybody had that golden child in the community. Why can't you be like, Princeton, Harvard, violin, guitar, varsity basketball? Fuck you, bro. Fuck all those people, female, male, because I wasn't one of them. And I'm sure they're doing great and they're living lavish lives, but like, we're always compared to somebody or to some model, and I think that's the answer. It's like we're not ever encouraged to explore who we are.
Which is huge for our spiritual journey. Like, that's
huge.
If we don't understand, like, we were made uniquely by God, for God, like, we're missing out on a huge piece of our identity.
Well, okay, and also one of the biggest aha moments in our journey together was I thought the real me was something that took away from my closeness to God. I thought it was something I had to prune and stifle and suffocate to become whatever the fuck, right?
Right.
But then the idea got planted in my head of like, no. What if God planted all the desires you have to become successful or to make an impact or your passions in clothes, food, whatever. What if God put that in you? Because that's exactly what he wants you to do. And then I was like, holy shit, version of God I've never heard before.
Right.
Because every child's fear that grew up in the church is what? I fucking pray to God God doesn't want me to become a pastor or a missionary. Please, Lord.
Right.
And then they just run away from that shit. But yeah, I think the more I subscribed to that idea, the more open I honestly got to God in church.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem like such an asshole judge.
Yeah.
And it was more like, oh, damn, maybe literally the best version of me. I was spending so much time afraid that what God wanted me to do was something I wouldn't do.
Right.
Instead of being open and curious to the fact that what if the best version of me and everything that I want is actually in line with what he's got planned.
Yeah, I mean, if we take scripture for what it is and we take our lives for what it is in communion with God, then we got to understand like your individuality matters in relation to the collective whole. So if you look at it like a jigsaw puzzle, like you're a piece to this great puzzle that is important and imperative. And so you trying to be like somebody else doesn't help the cause. It doesn't help your community, your families, yourself, God. It doesn't help anybody else.
Right.
But I think part of the issue is we've been programmed to be like somebody because we think that's cool.
Right.
Or we think that's right.
Right.
Instead of learning how to be who you are authentically, we're taught to be like somebody else because that's the image we got to follow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, I do want to extend some grace here because I'm a full Korean at heart. And I say that because I love the analogy that Korean people are like their food. When you go to a Korean restaurant, they come out fucking ice cold or piping hot, right?
Okay.
You get no in between.
Okay.
And I think for me, once I realized how out of touch I was with myself, I went full tilt the other way where every institution, my mom, school, church, corporate America, everything, I just kind of blamed them. And I was just like, yo, fuck all of that. You guys wronged me.
Right.
And it was just so one-sided, Not only was it so one-sided that it almost blinded me in me trying to be authentic as well, right?
Yeah.
Because it was just an overcorrection in one certain way.
Right.
But I want to extend grace because when I think about my mom, when I think about the people that were running the churches that I got hurt by, like they're only operating off of what they know.
What they've been taught.
Exactly, what they've had available. So, and at the same time, we have to understand, like, they were never equipped to raise millennials in this culture, in this era. So for us to even ask these questions, they never knew they would have to answer that call.
Sure.
Right? And so as I'm working through my bitterness, which is definitely still a work in progress, I'm like, damn, they did the best with what they could.
Yeah.
And I'm better off leaving it at that.
Right.
Right? Versus kind of picking it apart. Because that's just nobody's winning here.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah. Which, that's a lot of growth. And we've been journeying at this for a long time, kind of sharing and discussing some of the wounds. And they're real wounds.
Yeah.
But I think something that I'm proud of, something that I think a lot of people can resonate with is the idea that I've been in this place, but I also want to get into a place where I can move on.
Yeah.
And there's because there's just something tugging at you.
Right. No, for sure. And that tug was very similar to, let me pick things up actually. Last episode I talked about, or a couple of them, I talked about my hiatus, my drive where my mom was like, I'm lonely as fuck.
Yeah.
A vivid memory keeps replaying in my head actually to this day, which is I went on a mission trip to Thailand back in like high school. And we visited some like orphanage. They were doing great work. And like the director of this like campus and ministry was like, there was a team of like 5 or 6 of us, pretty small. And they're showing us their blueprint for this huge campus they're going to build. It was beautiful. One of those like miniature models. And the lead director goes, this is our dream. Like, what are your guys' dreams? They go down the line and everyone, I want to be a pastor and I want to do this, I want to do that. And they got to me and my ass was stumped. I looked like one of those, I was looking goofy out there, just like, I had no answer
like
for
an
you.
Oompa Loompa just rot.
I was, 15. And it still bothers me. And I was like, I wasn't able to answer that because I never took the time to ask myself what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so at that moment, the phone conversation with my mom, and as I'm like realizing how much I'm not in touch with myself, I like committed to myself, like, you're going to figure out who you are now. Right? Like, now is the beginning of the rest of your life kind of mentality.
Sure.
And again, that's when I made my commitment to God. I was like, yo, I'm going to be right back. I need to figure out who I am because I didn't really have a good handle on why do I believe the things I believe?
Yeah.
What is my theology on life?
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that question, I would argue you guys probably don't have one because, or at least you don't understand it. And I think understanding is like an important part of that.
For sure.
And I was just on autopilot. God, authenticity is really fucking hard. as we're sitting here recording, it's hard for me to be authentic in front of a fucking camera, right? Like, is this really me, or am I trying to perform right now for a show?
Yeah.
And it's like a muscle you have to work out every day. And I just think that most people are probably on autopilot a little bit without realizing, like,
so good.
Am I actually living my life, or am I just kind of existing?
Right. That's what I love about the idea of authenticity is you're digging through the layers and really saying, is this what I really believe in?
Yeah.
Is this really who I am?
Yeah.
And is this what I'm really going to live for? That's what makes it true. That's what makes it hard, but it's also what makes it absolutely real. And I don't know if a lot of people do that enough, right? Because if you were to peel the layers, you may not like what you see in the mirror.
Right.
You may not realize, like, dang, why was I following this blindly when I, in the back of my head, didn't really understand or believe in it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And that goes back to the accountability part.
Yeah.
Again, I'm listening back to these podcasts, and I'm just like, damn, you're not sounding bitter up there, bro. Like, I have my scars, and I am bitter in some areas, but, like, I'm just
You've
like...
come a long way.
I'm being self-aware, or trying to be self-aware in the sense of, like, yo, you're the one that gave those systems and institutions and people power. Like, what? Like, what? That's on you, right? Like, one of the realest aha moments that I had was pastors, which for my entire experience at church had so much power over me. One day I woke up and I was like, damn, this man only has the power that I give him. Otherwise, he's just a dude wearing a tie. That's all. You know what I'm saying? And, and so, like, along with authenticity came like the ownership of, like, okay.
Oh, that's a big word.
What?
Ownership.
Oh, ownership. Yeah, ownership and accountability. It's like, it's so much easier to critique someone else or the church or this person or that person rather than looking inside and be like, okay, but what's my part? Because I want to stop living victim to all these external things in my life. Yeah. And I want to figure out who I am and build myself.
Yeah. Because sometimes maybe you were the reason why, you know, the church was so dramatic. Maybe you brought the noise, you brought the heat. You know what I mean?
That's facts.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I just think that sometimes when we talk about, like, discovering ourselves, discovering our identities, which is a spiritual journey itself. And I think, I mean, you can't do it apart from God, I would argue. I think God is in the midst of all of it. But I think in that, we start to realize what are my strengths and weaknesses, passions, desires, sense of humor. Like, we discover things about ourselves that are uniquely me. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think you got to do that for yourself. I mean, it took a little bit, but we're here and you're journeying and it's powerful. And hopefully for anyone that's listening, you'll understand that even if you were on a hiatus from church because you've been through it. You know, you've been traumatized by leadership, pastors, whoever, knowing that God is with you, that your discovery of yourself is very much a spiritual journey. Yeah. That hopefully you won't look at it as, you know...
immoral?
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge, Sam. It's like a lot of thoughts I had in my journey that I'm still on, at first, I just straight up felt like a shitty person for thinking or saying out loud for the first time.
Wow.
Right? Like, if we're going to get all the way real, I grew up with a single mom, right? Yeah. My dad passed away of cancer at 13, and similar to your mom, I became her identity. Right. Literally.
Yeah, I live for you.
And when I'm young, I'm like, in when you're out the other, and as I get older, I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, that, you're putting some serious weight on me. Right. And an example of a thought that I had that, like, I felt really guilty about was like, yo, my mom has lived a really hard life. Yeah. She's been working at the post office for 20 plus years. She's on her feet, single mom, never had much. Right. Yet she's the most devout person that I know that loves Jesus the most.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
4:30 a.m. prayers.
How do I reconcile that? Like, I don't like your lifestyle, Mom. Yeah. How do I tell her that? I feel guilty just thinking that. Yeah. But that is what I'm authentically feeling. Yeah. What I see is dedication to God and obedience equals suffering. Right? And questioning that. Yeah. Because I would take that question to so many people in church, and they would give me some Christianese, and I'm just like, hey, I don't think you really know what's going on here. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, love it. And that's just one example of it, right? Even within the church, if you guys are feeling questions or suspicions, like, yo, throw that shit out there. Yeah. Because a good leader will not stifle curiosity. No. If they have nothing to hide and they're really about it, like, they'll sit down with you. Yeah. Or they should.
For sure. We have to nurture curiosity. We have to nurture this genuine, real faith. Yeah. Otherwise, we're gonna fold like napkins when push comes to shove.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we see it all the time growing up. We see, youth group and college ministries. You got the kids that are like all gung ho about Jesus,
right.
And then when the real world hits them, they're gone.
Right.
Churches become like an after school special for your family, your kids.
Yeah.
It's you don't see passion driven like really this is what I live for type of people anymore. It's because I think we've subconsciously just accepted the principles and values without wrestling through some of the hard questions.
Right. You know what that reminds me of? The whole, what you just said about people go to church and they stop. I also think about like I think this journey of authenticity is pretty timely for the age that I'm in. Because also, like there comes a time in life where you turn the corner of you're not really, you know who you are, you're figuring out what you believe in, and then you go, oh damn, me and my parents have very different views.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people sadly like kind of distance themselves from family.
Yeah.
Right? Or the ones with healthy relationships will work it out, or maybe they've always been close.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like that's a pattern I'm noticing, which is like I just kind of naturally reached a point where I questioned everything because I was like, damn, at the end of the day, on my deathbed, I got to be happy with my decisions. I got to live up with like all the things I did or didn't do. And so like literally systematically going through things I do or don't believe in, testing them out, getting a couple bruises and black eyes along the way, and just figuring out as we go.
Yeah. Ask questions, connect with different groups of people.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the spiritual journey will always lead back to if we say Jesus is the way and the truth and the life, the answers that you seek will eventually point to a certain direction.
Yeah.
But I think so many people are afraid to ask those questions or wrestle through those thoughts.
Yeah.
Especially leaders and stuff. It's like, whoa, I don't know where they're gonna go.
Right.
But I'm like, well, they'll be fine. The ministry of presence speaks louder than I think people realize.
Yeah.
And that's why me and you are connecting. That's why we're here.
Right.
It's not like you're like the ideal, perfect church leader that, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not like the model kind of image. But that's okay because we're in a journey and in a relationship with God that may look different from other people.
Right.
But we're still on a journey.
Right.
And I think that presence, this connection is what allows us to continue to see and experience God and life in ways that we've never got to do before.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that example too of like pastors being afraid of like enabling exploration. Oh, what if they hurt themselves? What if they do this or that? That's the parenting they received.
True.
Right? And again, like everyone is just a result of their experience of what they have and have not been exposed to.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. That's why I do fuck with you tough because it's like you don't operate on that old school mentality too much. You're just more open to it.
Yeah.
And it's just a breath of fresh air. And like, at least for me, I feel like I can be authentic without fear of repercussion, without fear of rebuke and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But at the same time, we all need to be corrected. We all need to be sharpened.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so I hope people don't think like, oh, Daniel's going to do whatever he wants to do. He don't give an F about nothing.
Right.
That's not the case at all.
No.
Like we've had some tough conversations. We've had some real talks. But that's what makes us better and vice versa. That's what allows us to be better men.
Right.
You know, and that's what allows us to live more purposefully and intentionally. Yeah. But I love the conversations that we have around not just the church identity, but our ethnic identities and how they really play a role into why we feel like we can't be vulnerable. So when someone says, when someone asks me, hey, what does it look like to be authentic?
Yeah.
The first phrase I think of is extreme vulnerability.
Okay, I like that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the for the immigrant church or for most people of color, being vulnerable is super difficult.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
you have to have a mask on. Everything is good all the time. When someone's parents ask you, "Hey, how's family?" It could be crap at the household, but what do you tell them?
That's true.
It's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not allowed to be real. You're not allowed to be vulnerable.
Can't bring dishonor to the family.
Cannot.
Yeah.
Cannot. It's like the greatest disgrace possible.
For sure.
And so I think when we start to live that lifestyle, that becomes your mask. Everything is good all the time. Yeah. And so we don't know how to get in touch with our flaws, our brokenness, our weaknesses, our sorrows. And if we're not aware of them, we become that. We become the insecurity that we've been wrestling through. And that's why I think authenticity is so important. You know what I mean? Is to dig deep and to really find that, whoa, that's really heavy. That's really dark. Or that's a part of me that I didn't even think that was there.
That's so true. Quick story time on that note.
Get 'em.
I remember, I was second grade. Mrs. Morrow, Finley Elementary School. Finley. So back when you're younger in elementary school, you don't get graded. Well, you get graded on the mathematics, science, and stuff like that. But it's not A, B, C, D. It's not 4.0 scale.
Yeah.
At least in my school district, it was like there was academic scores and there was like cooperation, emotional intelligence, gets along with other people, is considerate.
Yeah.
And I was top marks, outstanding on everything except for the considers other people's feelings thing. Because I was a little shithead. I was a fucking bully. I was a piece of shit. And I remember my mom got fed up because I kept getting the lowest mark on that one. And I would fight back and be like, Mom, like, what more do you want? You see all these O's? You see abundance of O's? And she's like, hey, next report card, I don't give a shit about anything else. If this is not an O,
we're gonna have some problems.
your ass gonna get beat.
We're gonna have some issues.
And my mom was the enforcer in my house, right? So
yeah.
I was like, fuck. That day, obviously, I was like, that week, I was all proper. And then it fades. The fear fades. You go back into your old habits and whatever. And before I know it, oh shit, report cards are coming out next week or tomorrow. All of a sudden, I'm sweating bullets. And I go up to Mrs. Morrow and I'm like, hey, I open the report card and I have an I here, right? I was needs improvement. Back in elementary school, you kind of hang out until your parents pick you up in the pickup zone or whatever. And I remember as soon as the fear of God came into me when I saw the I, obviously, because like, shit, I don't want to go home to an ass beating. Yeah. My mom's low-key fucking strong. It's not fun out here. Yeah. So I fucking crawl over to my teacher and I just start crying. I'm like, you have to change this grade. Please change this grade. She goes, Daniel, like, it's just a report card. What's going on? It's just a report card.
They don't know.
She was white. Yeah. Anyways, what's wrong, dude? Why are you crying? Are you okay? Split second decision. Do I tell her the truth? Because even as a little kid, you probably know you don't want to tell people your ass gonna get beat. But I'm fight or flight at this moment. I'm like, I want to be alive tomorrow. Hey, don't tell anybody. But if you don't give me an O, my mom is literally gonna beat my ass when I get home. Mrs. Morrow, please.
Second grade, huh?
Second grade, please save me. The look of horror on this woman's face, like, are you serious? What do you mean you're gonna get beat? Hey, don't ask questions. I need this to turn into an O. There's a printer right here, there's a computer right there. She's like, I'm gonna have to talk to your mom. Fuck, this is worse than getting the I. Like, I'm gonna have to, my teacher's gonna confront my mom up disciplining me. And so my mom is like, she knows it's report card day, right? She's just like, today's gonna be the day. And I'm like walking out with my teacher. She's like,
find out.
Yeah, what's going on here? Teacher walks up to my the passenger door. Oh, Mrs. Choi, so good to see you today. So Daniel told me what this report card means for today. And I think my mom, like, she's not fluent in English, right? But she understands the gist of it. She's like, okay. Mrs. Choi, these report cards are meant to encourage and empower our children. This isn't meant to discipline or to hurt. Yeah. And I heard something bad might happen today. My mom gives me that. Everybody knows that fucking look, right? That split second, like, I can't be caught in the act of looking at you like this, but like the energy is there. And she's like, oh, okay, saying all the right things. The scariest part is on the drive home. My mom didn't say a damn fucking word, dude. I'm like, give me some. Like, is it gonna be real bad or real nothing? We drive home and straight to dinner time. My dad's at the table, my sister's at the table, and I'm not gonna say anything about what happened. My mom like debriefs my dad, right? And all of a sudden I feel like his presence, tense up, look at me, and he's going off like, he's like, dude, do you know what you could do? Like, white people don't raise you like we do. Like, do you know what child services is? Like, we might get that called on us. This whole time I'm just like, so am I gonna get hit? Am I gonna get hit? Turns out my ass didn't get beat, right?
Lucky child.
Well, because dude, they must have been legit fucking scared. Like, what if something happens? Why did I even tell? Oh yeah, the brand. This all comes back to like, so as we get raised up from the very beginning, it's about the brand of the family, the brand of the church, even today, the brand of the company you work for before who you are inside. And so it almost feels like we're in a system that's designed to suppress who we really are. But I think it's beautiful. That's one positive thing social media has done, has allowed people to benefit from being who they are. You will find some dude who is weirdly into ant farms that has 10 million followers and is like rolling in it, right? Right. So, and small tangent, but
ant farms.
So
I think that's real, and we're gonna probably continue to talk about it and journey together in that. Of really the idea of self-discovery, self-awareness. It's such a big thing. It's such a big deal. It is a spiritual journey that I hope people take seriously.
For sure.
It's not just about going to church or not. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
You know, going to church is just a byproduct of what you feel like is happening internally. You know, and that's part of the thing that I think a lot of people miss out on is I met a lot of people who go to church who just don't believe in the church anymore. So that doesn't benefit anybody.
What do you mean they don't believe in the church?
Like, you go because that's what you know. You go because that's what you're familiar with. You go because that's where you find friends.
Yeah.
But you don't essentially go to invest in your faith journey or to you know, da-da-da-da. And so that's where I'm like, we don't want that either.
Yeah.
And so I think the whole point of this journey is about personal transformation, right?
Right.
So someone asked me, like, what is spiritual journey all about? It's about personal transformation, right? Discovering who you are, discovering what you're living for, that allows you to live fully, right? Without someone telling you should do this, you should do that, but to live, you know, intentionally and purposefully. Yeah. And so that's my hope. That's my prayer through these moments of, man, as I discover more of who I am, like, is what I'm really living for. Oh, Jesus.
Rookie move, Samwise.
Oh, Jesus! People hitting me up.
It's all good
in the middle of the podcast, but that's what I'm exploring, and I see that with a whole lot of people that have been hitting us up. It's like, it's not that I don't believe in God or anything like that. It's just I've been so jaded by the church, but I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
What I mean?
I like that. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. Either you yourself, your ministry, or others. What have you witnessed that discourages that self-discovery and authenticity?
That's a great question. I think when you're told, I believe in the church. I think the church is a beautiful place. And by church, I mean the people of God. But when we're told you have to go there, because God is there only, then you're stuck, because on one end, you're like, well, okay, where can I go?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go back to the same context that I was at before, because that was destructive and hurtful and da-da-da-da.
Right.
But I don't want to just go anywhere because, well, I don't really fit in. And so that's where I'm like, maybe it's not about the place that you go to, but about the personal journey that you're going through.
Dude, wait, I love that, because I agree. I think one of the hardest things, or one of the most toxic things, is if you're going to Christianity, main characters are God and you.
Yeah.
But I feel like my experience was like the church is the main character.
Yeah, I mean, I would try to phrase it in a way that we were made to be in communion, right? The whole idea of a little quick Bible study, right? I think when you talk about like the cross, right? The cross is a perfect picture of what it looks like to be a reconciled body, meaning that Jesus died on the cross so that you could be with God, but also that we would have communion with one another, right? This is why Black Lives Matter, because when my brother is hurting, that hurts me.
Right.
This is why we talk about Asian hate. It's because when my sisters are going through these things, it affects me. So we're all tied in communion with one another, but if we don't understand our individuality in the midst of community or communion, then we're missing out on this greater jigsaw puzzle, right? And so that's where I think it's got to be both and. Like, we're not just living to just, you know, for myself, I'm living to better humanity, to understand what it looks like to be in community with one another. And that's the beauty of it. That's the purpose, and that's the adventure, right?
Yeah, no, I feel that. So to kind of wrap this up, I think it was a very specific moment where I feel like veils were lifted from my eyes, and I realized just how much I didn't know who I was. Yeah. And just how long of a road ahead it was going to be, because I was like, damn, I need to figure out who I am, and I'm already old as fuck. Like, so extreme vulnerability, the way that you said it, I think makes complete sense, because it's you in your most unprocessed state, right?
100%.
Like your raw form, and being comfortable in that. And asking the questions, because I think you don't know what you're made out of until you get tested.
Boom.
You don't know what you believe until you do. You know what I'm saying? That's why you might not like this. I know most pastors don't. I don't believe in this whole like, you don't have to make this mistake because I made the mistake. And I'm just like, okay, that's maybe for some people that's not how I roll. I remember one of the biggest points of like beef at my church in college was weed. Because you go to college and you fucking drink and you smoke weed, okay? You have sex, you do drugs. That's what you do in college. And it was always the fucking people that had never smoked that was trying to educate me about fucking smoking. And I'm just like, dude, if you're not curious and you don't like it, I respect that.
Sure.
But you don't have the space to talk to me about weed because you've literally never done it.
Yeah.
You just haven't.
Yeah.
And you can judge me for doing it and not, but like, again, you've never done it, so you don't know what it does or doesn't do to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, why did this get brought up?
I don't know. I think it was a touching point for you. So obviously, we're working through the bitterness.
Yeah,
you're right.
You're right. I was a huge fucking stoner in college, man. It was bad.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was wrapping this up. We're talking about authenticity and being woken up and finding out who you are. And just really living life. This might sound weird, but like living life for yourself. I'm not saying just be selfish and do everything to benefit you, but it was at the moment that I realized I have to prioritize myself so that I can serve others, so that I can contribute to others. That was huge. Because the church says be selfless. Your family says it's about the family, it's not about you. But like, it wasn't until that I really was able to truly love who I was that I could love other people.
Like, what are my needs? What are my passions?
Exactly.
What are my flaws, weaknesses, etc.?
What are my boundaries?
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
Self-awareness, self-discovery is huge.
That. And I just think that is self-awareness as a core concept is not encouraged or taught in church. It sure as hell is not encouraged or taught in the Asian American culture and environment.
Right.
So I guess that's a big encouragement to everybody else out there. It's like, yo, life is fucking hard. Yeah. Being authentic and real with yourself is really fucking hard. But I think it's worth it. I think it's liberating.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I'm hoping that this platform and podcast is creating a community where people can relate in that vulnerable place.
Yeah.
And actually, on that note, I actually wanted to invite all of our listeners. This is an idea, actually. I haven't fully run it by you guys, too. But I think it'd be cool. I'm getting messages from people that are saying, like, yo, this is my story. This is what I'm going through. I'm so glad that you're talking about this. If you guys are comfortable, I would actually love to anonymize and share that on the Instagram just to be another point of reference to be like, I'm not alone in this shit. Other people are dealing with X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And so if you guys are comfortable, so inclined, hit us up. We'll definitely keep it anonymous. But like, again, I want to create a space where people can come as they are, authentic as fuck, and be able to grow together and have this type of conversation.
Beautiful. Love it. Yeah. Let's do it. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but let's get it.
I know, right? We're figuring this shit out as we go, man.
Yeah.
Like, any final thoughts from you?
I mean, I'm probably going to say this every time we meet, but I'm always humbled to be able to have these dialogues. And I've been getting a lot of good feedback from different people, even like church leaders, about how this is a very raw conversation.
Yeah.
You know? And for me, I think Jesus is about as raw as we gonna get, you know? I love this, and I think this is going to be a lot of beauty. And I just want to encourage people to know that, you know, we're in this. Yeah. You know, COVID is crazy, but we get to grow in this together. And we're going to have some good times ahead.
We're going to have some good times.
Yeah.
Last thing, I got to shout them out again. Our fucking producers, Ray Huang, a.k.a. Ray Dao, a.k.a. Young Dragon, Chi-Wan, the real one. You guys don't know this. This podcast has actually been like over a year in the making. Me and this dude have made multiple outlines and ideas. And at one point, we were dead ass on my fucking carpet floor with my iPhone recording conversations.
It was grungy.
It was grungy. Hey, it was a startup,
yeah.
But now I wish you guys could see this. We'll post some stuff on Instagram for visibility. But we have a full fucking like operation going here. All the behind the scenes shit with like the YouTube, the videos, the audio, it's all them. So shout outs to them again. They're not comfortable with it yet, but I'm gonna get their asses on screen soon. So you guys are gonna hear from them real soon. He's flipping me off right now, but we go get him on here. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back.
Peace.